Today's lesson is by request, and this is for my beginner buddies out there. We'll be talking about how to properly do hammer-ons and pull-offs, which I know sounds like we're about to do a workout video.
And again, touch it, forward.
But that's not it at all. We're just going to talk about how to properly do this kind of thing without making a whole bunch of noise and flubbiness. Okay, so when we're talking about hammer-ons and pull-offs, what that just means simply is that you're playing notes without picking each note. So if I was to play these two notes here, I'm playing the 5th fret of the 4th string and the 7th fret of the same string. It's a G and an A. Instead of picking each one of the notes like that, I can just pick the first note and then keep making the notes sound out with my left hand. So when you're first starting out learning how to do this, you usually end up making a lot of string noise and having problems with getting the note to sound right on the pull-off part of it. The hammer-on is the first part where you hammer your finger down onto the fret. So I go from the 5th and I just hammer down onto the 7th fret there. So practicing that is mostly just a matter of building up the strength so the note sounds out. Here on an electric guitar with a little bit of distortion like I have, it's much easier than on an acoustic where you don't have anything trying to help amplify the sound. So if you practice this on an acoustic, expect it to take a little longer, but then when you get over to an electric, you're going to be like a rock star with it. So again, the hammer-on is just simply bringing your finger down onto the fret and doing it with enough force so that it sounds out. The trickier one of these is the pull-off part, where you're pulling back to the first note again. You don't just lift your finger up. If you did that, you get no sound almost. It starts to die. And that's what you're going to see happen to a lot of new players, is that dying out kind of thing. And the trick here is that when you pull off, you actually slightly bend the string down and flick it off of your finger so that it's almost like you had it stuck there and it just got flung off of your finger almost accidentally. There's a slight bit of a bend, and you have to get used to that feeling of it kind of ripping off of the fingertip, which sounds painful, but it's not once you've developed normal calluses. And it's the kind of thing that you just have to practice very slowly at first. Get the hammer on, just pull off. And it's going to sound, there's going to be a lot of noise, and you're not going to get all of them. You just have to build up the strength and the habit over time. The other problem that you have when you pull off a lot of times, especially when you're on an electric now, where now it's a disadvantage that you have all this gain and extra help, is that there's going to be noise from the other strings. So when you do the pull-off, especially, the noise is going to come from the string underneath your finger. So if I'm on the 4th here, you're going to have a problem with noise on the 3rd string. So I'm going to move up a fret and show you the whole thing here. So when the two notes ring out together, they sound awful, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. So now instead of the 5th to the 7th, I am going to go from the 6th to the 8th. And the open string here is that G note. So if I pull off and I end up with that note ringing and the note that I was pulling off to at the same time, you get that awful sound. You can hear they ring together and it doesn't sound good. Now the trick to this is the angle at which you are holding the frets. So I zoom in here and you can see normally, if you're playing with your fingertip, that note rings out beneath it. It's clear. If I get a little bit more of an angle, I can use the pad of my finger and deaden that note. So now when I play this note, the next string is deadened. It can't ring out. And when I pull off, then there's no risk of getting that extra noise. So you have to get used to that finger angle when you're doing pull-offs so that you don't generate noise that you're not looking for. Now, when you're doing hammer-ons and pull-offs with open strings, it can be a little bit more difficult because you don't have a finger resting there. And I'm actually kind of doing it with the finger that I'm hammering on and pulling off with. When I hammer on, I'm at that angle we talked about before, so that's dead. And when I pull off to a resting position on that string. I'm not lifting all the way up where I start making things ring out. You can see it comes to a resting position, even if just for a split second when I'm playing something fast, and it makes sure that it's dead. The last piece of it here is if I'm playing like on the 4th or the 3rd string. Notice my right hand, my thumb goes and mutes the strings here so I don't have the noise from these strings. So my left hand is taking care of the strings, the higher strings closer to the floor below my pull-off, and my right hand, by turning the thumb and resting on the strings, is taking care of the noise from the low strings closer to the ceiling. So when it comes time to practice all this, like with everything else when you're starting on the guitar, A, it's going to sound awful for a while. No problem, it's supposed to. And B, you have to work really, really painfully slow and just build up speed over time. I like to work, or have my students work on the 1st and 3rd finger pull off first, because they're kind of the easiest, and do them somewhere here like that 5th and 7th fret that I was doing. Work them on the different strings so you get used to the muting with your right hand and the feel of the other string that you're muting under your finger. And then I would start working on 1st and 2nd fingers I'm talking about. And then the pinky, which is going to be hard. And you can work on all the permutations of the different combinations of your fingers. When you start to get comfortable with that, then I would work on the open string pull-offs, because they're a little bit more difficult insofar as it's easier to make noise with them. So there's your beginner's primer on hammer-ons and pull-offs. I hope that all made sense to you and it answered any questions if you had them. Please leave any comments below if there's anything that I left out or you need me to explain further. I'm always happy to answer, and obviously I'll even do a video to answer a question like I did here. And until next time, guys, keep making great music. Hey friends, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. It makes the whole world better.